And so in this video, I want to cover probably the biggest mistake I've made that I know for a fact will help 99.9% of you make substantially more gains, but importantly in a safe way. I know I kind of use that phrase quite a lot, make money in a safe way, but when you see what I'm talking about here, it just makes complete sense, and it would have actually prevented most of us being down in the market right now. Most of us are panicked because we bought altcoins too early. Most of us got wrecked because we didn't take advantage of Bitcoin when alts continuously bled into it. Now, I do think we'll have an alt season here. I think the best part of the bull run is still ahead of us, not behind us. But again, if we could have maximized our gains, plus also not have been down, as some of us are 80% right now, who the hell is not going to want to try doing that based on what we know how these cycles currently work? And that is the premise in this video. Had particularly I known how this was so easy coming into this cycle, I'm sorry guys, but I would have told us to do things completely different. You know, I thought that buying altcoins in the last bear market and of course selling them up here, that it was a good idea. And for the most part, it's not a bad idea. But I think given what we know now about how altcoins and the relationship with Bitcoin works, there is just simply a better way to do it. Because right now, had we done this new plan, we would have seen this as an extremely lucrative time and had a lot of dry powder to be able to spend to buy this dip. I know it sounds a little too good to be true. And again, I want to apologize for not knowing this sooner. You only know what you know, but this is just going to allow us to make a lot more money in a very safe way next time around. Because I think if we do fall into a bear market here and we blow past every single level of possible support, and you bears are really happy about that, then I'm pretty much going to be working my ass off to do this particular plan you're seeing right now. Conversely, if we have a bull run and then the eventual sharp drop off and then go into the bear market, which I think is more likely to happen, then yet again, this plan will be very, very useful as well. So what is this plan? How does it work? Well, basically, it's leveraging Bitcoin in the early parts of a bull run and then using altcoins in that next phase almost as a bit of a finishing blow, all right? We're kind of using Bitcoin here to make just a couple multiples. That way we don't have to look for these 10, 20, 30, or maybe some of you crazy guys out there, 50x gains, but instead we slash that, okay? We start off this cycle with a very clear goal, all right? I know my goals. You should all have yours. Let's say my goal is $1 million. The plan here is to buy as much Bitcoin at the lows, make a few multiples, and turn those few multiples into the goal that you want. In this case, let's pretend it's $1 million with altcoins on the last leap up. Basically, you could actually be out of the market right now. Genuinely, you could have, had we had known this. So let's look at how this actually works. It's very simple. All we're going to be doing here, and I know you might laugh at me because it is so obvious. It's obvious in retrospect. Buy Bitcoin in the lows. Had you been buying Bitcoin down here all the way through to about over here in this general range in about 2022 all the way through to mid-2023, you would have been able to buy Bitcoin and pretty much get a massively good discount. As a matter of fact, we don't even need to really just guess at the rough timing of the bottom here. Like, it's not a price prediction. We were like trying to figure out when this, may reverse and where the exact bottom is. We couldn't care, or I couldn't care less when the bottom is. We're going to have some great tools like this. This is the MVRV Extreme Deviations tool, which basically just tells us if the average person buying Bitcoin is extremely in profit, which is red, that means price is going to likely come down, or extremely at a loss, okay, beneath their cost basis, which is in this blue and greenish color. And so, of course, as you may have guessed, we simply want to buy when this chart turns green, especially when this chart turns blue. Another great chart here is using this as well. This is the same thing, but in bands. And you can see when price falls beneath the blue line, it doesn't like staying beneath it too long, but a much simpler version is just simply this sheet. And why I'm so confident in using this, as well as some of the other indicators like the 4-year moving average and so on, to determine whether it's a good time to buy, irrespective of it being the bottom or not, is just simply because we know the average person's buy-in price. If, for example, you were buying stocks and you could figure out what the whales, what the short-term holders, the manipulators, for example, and what the average people were up in terms of what their average buy-in price was, of course you would use that to your advantage to work out whether or not the average person is up a lot of money and whether you should take some profit off the table or conversely, buy when everyone else is in a loss. Okay, that's what we're using here effectively. We're using everyone's roughly speaking buy-in price. So again, we're not trying to time the bottom here like we would with the price prediction, trying to time the top, but what we're doing here is just simply dollar cost averaging as much as we can in the next bear market. Whether you go out to get a second job, whether you start pawning things off, whatever you may want to do, we buy it. Here's the difference though. We do not do what I said before. We do not buy altcoins. First of all, you don't buy altcoins because we know Bitcoin will go up. That's a given, all right, in the next cycle. But importantly, we don't know the narratives of that next bull run. We don't know whether utility coins will be the main focus. We don't know whether AI or DePIN or even real-world assets will fade into oblivion, or whether a coin like Ondo will destroy the rest of the RWA market to where there's no need for other coins. We just don't know these massively important variables at this point. So why take the risk and buy altcoins down here? Yes, you could buy a coin like, let's just say, Render at 40 cents, and it could go up to a price of $100 and you've 10 billion quazillion X'd. You could do that. Or there's a higher chance that you buy the wrong coin and it doesn't do too well. So hear me out. When you buy at the bottom here, particularly Bitcoin, again, we track all the on-chain data. You're buying at the lows and you're not trying to time it. You just average in. Let's say you average in at 16 grand. The next goal is to sell everything at the all-time high. You want to do this because every single point in Bitcoin's history, the all-time high has proven to be high resistance. Even right here in the 2021 cycle, in this first pump, where we had extreme stimulation. All right, everything was skyrocketing, global liquidity, everything was going up, and we still had a pause here from the previous all-time high. So you want to take all your profit off the table, irrespective of if this signals red. What is this? Well, like I said, it's the opposite of this particular thing right here. It's if a lot of people are in profit, this chart here will signal red. And of course, it did signal red at this, all-time high in the previous cycle, which would mean that a lot of people are again likely to take profit here soon. This chart again also has a very similar thing. Again, when it's over the red line, you just want to take some money off the table. But strategically, you don't have to copy me exactly, but I'm taking all my profit off the table. Now, in hindsight, this would have been a perfect trade for this cycle because we moved sideways here for quite a while. We actually moved sideways at this particular point for about 217 days, so almost an entire year. The important part comes next though. Okay, so once you've sold all your Bitcoin, you've probably made at least a 2x. That's at least what I'm forecasting to happen the next cycle. I still think Bitcoin has massive pull downs, or at least a 50% pull down from wherever the high is this cycle, and you'll likely be able to look again for a 2x from these lows. So let's just say you've turned $100,000 into $200,000. That's great. So, okay, you have 200K cash. What do you do? Well, when this particular chart turns yellow, or again, a chart like this, where the price falls back on the mean, which is this middle line, which pretty much means that most people are ever so slightly in profit or at a slight loss, you want to jump back in again. Now, you want to jump into particularly a mixture of altcoins and Bitcoin, because as we know, this is the previous all-time high. Likely Bitcoin's price will jump above it, and when it does, of course, there are some multiples to be made. In this cycle, those multiples would have given you a 2x. In the previous cycle, it would have given you a 2.4x. And I don't really care how many multiples it gives us in the next bull run. The goal here of buying Bitcoin is just to simply stabilize our positions. Even if you don't jump entirely back into Bitcoin, that mixture might be 50% Bitcoin, 50% altcoins. It's to help any volatility and conversely be used at a point like this when we do eventually cool down from another red period, and that's kind of what the indicator will be at that time, to take money off the table, as it is on charts like this as well, in conjunction with ideally a few more charts. Don't ever just use one chart, as good as these charts may possibly be. And then to use that extra Bitcoin to then liquidate and possibly buy back into altcoins as well. So if you are 50-50 into Bitcoin and altcoins at this particular time here, you may want to completely liquidate, or you may want to just liquidate your Bitcoin. But I do think at absolute least, you should liquidate your Bitcoin. And here's the reason why. Buying past this point or holding past this point, you're really trying to time the top. It could go 50% higher from there, but likely already, again, imagine 50% from this. That's like $160,000, $170,000. Yes, there's a good chance it happens, but no. Remember our goal here. Bitcoin is used in the early parts of the bull run to slash down the multiples we need overall. If we want a 30x, we'll need a 30x. If we have 2x, therefore alts need to help us get a 15x. Okay, again, maybe we're lucky enough to get a 4x on Bitcoin here at this particular point, which means that now instead of a 30x, we might only need a 5x. So just think of it as Bitcoin is used in the early parts. And also, if we buy back into Bitcoin here for that next run up, which will be easily identifiable, I believe, by this chart here, signaling red, as it typically will, as well as this band chart right here, okay? In conjunction with other charts as well. You don't want to just rely on one or two charts. Sentiment also is a good thing. If the sentiment was like back here a score of 80 or 90, where everyone's bullish, again, you'd want to obviously take some profit off the table. But needless to say, your Bitcoin can be used at this point as well to help fund an additional dollar cost average into your alts when your alts fall back into another yellow period like they were over here. Does that make sense? Essentially, Bitcoin is used as a way to continuously buy into altcoins once it's been used for the slashing effect, slashing down the multiples we need. And so again, you're in complete cash here. You buy your alts and mixture of Bitcoin here. And that all depends on your personal, goals and risk tolerance. If you cannot afford any risk, maybe that is just simply a 70 to 90% buy of Bitcoin over here to a smaller fraction of alts. Maybe only buy 30% of your portfolio in alts. Maybe you also take back out your cost basis, so all the money you bought in a Bitcoin down here as well. So you're pretty much playing with house money. And then over here, the bare minimum, again, you should look to do is to sell all your Bitcoin unless you are holding for the long term. And this 70% hypothetically, or whatever it is, 50%, 20%, maybe you're alt heavy, whatever, can be used if we do come down, and that is to be expected, to cool off, to buy more altcoins. Just don't get it twisted, guys. Because you see Bitcoin's chart in the macro sense create higher lows does not mean the same is applied to altcoins. You can see here, if you bought at the current time, you would have bought cheaper than the equivalent of buying back down here again for an altcoin like Near Protocol. And as a matter of fact, most semi-old altcoins as well. So if that was the case, okay, like it is with Near Protocol, you'd be able to actually lower your average buy-in price from buying here. You just, again, want to wait for another yellow bar or yellow bars to actually signal on charts like this in conjunction with other indicators as well. But let me repeat it for the third time. I personally, at least, will be selling all of my Bitcoin here and using any of the existing positions I have in alts to continue to dollar cost average. I will likely, though, take out the money I've put in the market just to be safe. That would be an amazing feeling right now, wouldn't it? To have everything all completely out, all the money we put in, everything else is house money. Now, the reason why in the first place you'd ever want to entertain buying alts down here, because I know some of you guys are thinking, well, Kyron, what if this happens again where alts struggle until the very last part of the bull run, so it would make sense to wait for this? And you're completely right. The reason why it would make complete sense is one, first of all, alts are going to just get you more multiples from this particular point in time. So buying alts here, two up here in that previous cycle. So this particular point can get you some serious gains. Like HBAR, for example, would have taken you from about 3 cents-ish up to about over here 15 cents. So you're about 5x'd, okay? So even large cap altcoins, like if I pull up AVAX, for example, back here, was about $3.50. This would have gotten you around about $40. So you've about 10x. So you would have probably made a fair few multiples by this point, and that may just simply mean as well that you're completely out of the market. You've actually made maybe your entire target goal here, okay? So that's why it's important to be in altcoins at this point. Even if you don't sell it all, okay, over here, you've got a pretty low cost basis entered in. However, if you do decide to just simply buy entirely back into Bitcoin here and ignore alts, or you decide to buy a mixture and then sell it all and have completely cash ready to go back in here again, then you are being exposed, I think, to a lot of risk, because alts don't have much more in the tank from this particular point in time. And let me remind you guys, that particular point in time is when we've signaled red yet again in that first major move up past the all-time high. Okay, so it's this particular point we're in right now, as you can see here. So when we are at this point, you're pretty much restricted to mid caps, small caps, and micro caps, because as you can see here with Chainlink, the multiples you have for large cap altcoins are pretty minimal. I mean, you would have pretty much been buying into Chainlink over here at $34 when it only went to $50. And again, you don't know how much more room these coins have in the tank. So this applies for every other coin I could show you here. Avalanche, for example, is the exact same. You'd be buying over here at around $38 when the price went to $129. That was a bit more multiples. Cardano was a similar story over here, roughly about $1, went to $3. So again, you're kind of confined. So I think you have a much more breathing room if you decide to go into altcoins here, even if, again, the prices up here for alts are back down to those same lows, if not lower, as they are here for coins like Near Protocol. So you're just simply taking a bit of a gamble. But again, in that interim period, you could have made some decent returns. Like you could have here with Near going from like $4 to $8. So, hey, there's a million ways to skin the cat. But I thought I would just kind of introduce you to you guys this kind of plan I have for the next cycle. Those of you in the private community likely already know about this in my vlogs I do for level 2 members and level 3 members. I've spoken about this quite a lot and everyone seems to agree. It leaves room for contingencies. It actually leaves room for error. Okay, again, you might not want to sell your Bitcoin come that, second sort of point in time like I showed you here. You may want to hold it, but either way, you're actually in a bit of profit because you've already taken some off the table here. You may want to buy alts, you may not. You may want to use the Bitcoin sold to buy more into alts. I mean, you have so many luxuries. And like I said, it's partly my fault. I must admit, like I am a human. I can only do so much research. I am my only researcher. Oftentimes it requires analyzing what you didn't do well in the past and working out how you could have made it better based on history. But so many people look at Bitcoin as sort of like having to hold it for the whole cycle for it to kind of be anything. Like people think, I'm not going to buy Bitcoin at the lows because Bitcoin will probably only get like a 5x the whole cycle. All that may be true if you can just simply get a 2x to begin with before alts even start really doing anything. Matter of fact, we don't even really know the best altcoins or the best narratives of the cycle yet. Then why wouldn't you want to slash the multiples you need in half and take some money off the table just to be safe? So let me know what you think down below. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think I'm overanalyzing? Or do you think maybe it's too simplistic? Let me know. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Take good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.